In the astral realm, Varanus, a young Githyanki Gish, who was trained in both swordplay and psionics under her battle-hardened mother in Tunarath. The Githyanki, once enslaved by the Mind Flayers, now sought vengeance against their ancient oppressors. To be considered an adult, Varanus had to kill a Mind Flayer. On the day of her trial, Varanus stepped through a rift to the Mind Flayer's lair, her silver blade in one hand and psionic energy crackling in the other. Deep in the labyrinth, she confronted a towering Mind Flayer. The battle was fierce. Varanus' blade clashed against the Mind Flayer's psychic defenses, her psionic blast searing through its dark powers. With a final, determined thrust, she drove her blade into the creature's heart. Its scream faded into the void. As she stood over the fallen Mind Flayer, a mix of triumph and unease washed over her, proud to uphold her people's tradition, yet unsettled by the life she had taken. Returning to Tunarath, Varanus was greeted by her proud mother. She had proven herself, embracing her destiny as both a warrior and a scion. Now an adult, Varanus was ready to carve her place out amongst the stars. So today's video is on the Githyanki. First, what does Boo tell you? So Githyanki and Githzerai are both descended from the same progenitors, now called simply the Gith. Githyanki mostly dwell in the astral sea, where they raid wild space and plunder the multiverse. The best known group of Githyanki are the followers of the Lich Queen Vlaakith. The stat blocks presented in Boo's Astral Menagerie are interesting variants. The Buccaneer is basically a ship's crew take on the Githyanki warrior. The Starseer and Xenomancers are interesting. They're psionic warriors, but they fit into the Warlock and Druid class, respectively. All three of the Githyanki and Boos have an astral step, basically a misty step, as a bonus action. So that's what Boo tells you. What about what the Monster Manual tells you? So the Monster Manual details how a group of creatures, the Gith, enslaved by the Mind Flayer, struggled many times against their oppressors. Every time they tried to free themselves, they failed. This is until the great leader, named Gith, arose. After much bloodshed, Gith and her followers freed themselves from the Mind Flayer masters. During the fighting, another leader named Zerthamon emerged, who challenged Gith's motives, claiming she was acting as a slave master with her strict martial leadership. The rift which emerged between Gith and Zerthamon resulted in the two modern-day peoples of the Githyanki and the Githzerai. Githyanki are known to fly through wild space on spelljammers and ride on the back of red dragons. In Githyanki language, Githyanki means followers of Gith. Under Gith, the Githyanki society morphed into a strict caste system dedicated to the ongoing fight against the sworn enemies of the Githyanki race when Gith died. When Gith died, she was replaced by the Lich Queen Vlaakith, who forbade worship of any other figure. Of all the enemies of the Githyanki, they hate their former masters, the Mind Flayers, the most, with their close kin, the Githzerai, following a close second. Githyanki's favourite weapon is the iconic silver sword, which they use to channel psionic energy, dealing physical as well as psychic damage. In the eyes of a Githyanki, each silver sword is a work of art, and they will hunt down any non-Githyanki who wields one. During the uprising against the Mind Flayers, Gith sought out aid from Tiamat, who sent her red dragon consort, Ephelamon, to aid the Githyanki. Ephelamon proclaimed all red dragons will be sworn allies of Githyanki. And to this day, red dragons aren't immediately hostile to Githyanki. Since creatures which live in the astral plane don't age, Githyanki make homes in the material plane to have and raise children. When a Githyanki grows, they must slay a Mind Flayer to be permitted to rejoin its people in the astral plane. So that's what the Monster Manual tells you. What about Mordenkainen's? So Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes repeats much of the same information as the Monster Manual, but it elaborates on the Githyanki psionics and military structure. It said that 10 Githyanki warriors follow the command of a Sarth, but 10 Sarths follow the command of a Kithrak. Kithrak are powerful, CR12 creatures with a range of psionic magic spells and powerful greatsword attacks, dealing 2d4 plus 4 damage, plus 5d6 psychic damage. And they get 3 melee attacks per attack action. It's a scary monster. If that wasn't scary enough, 10 Kithraks follow the command of a Githyanki Supreme Commander, who are said to ride into battle on red dragons. This intimidating CR14 creature with legendary actions and spells as high as the 7th level plane shift, not to be trifled with. So lastly, what do the 5e books not tell you? So because one doesn't need to consume food in the astral sea, Githyanki digestive systems have atrophied, to the point where when they're on the material plane, they need to eat frequently and frequently eat meat. They also find the gravity of the prematerial worlds to be uncomfortable. Githyanki reproduce by laying eggs. It's not known where this trait arose, but some speculate it was a result of the prolonged enslavement or long exposure to the astral sea. The Githyanki caste system is divided into three main groups. Number one, the military. Number two, the Malar, who were the craftsmen. And number three, the Galathic, Glathk, who were the farmers and laborers. The Malar construct spelljamming ships, silver swords used in combat. The Malar were said to use psionics to cast spells such as Fabricate to work more efficiently than the Glathk. Glathk were mostly farmers who produced crops like mushrooms which grew without light. The Glathk role was considered so low because creatures in the astral plane don't need to consume food, so food was only needed when the Githyanki ventured into the material plane to raid or raise families. There are some Githyanki which manipulated the raw energy of the astral plane. They are divided into four groups depending on the type of energy they specialized in. There are the Husti, who were the healers, the Varinthan, which created materials for the Malar, the Yurn, who were able to transport and teleport items, and lastly the Senjasi, who were the seers specialized in divination magic. So in conclusion, the Githyanki, as presented in Boo's Astral Menagerie, are interesting variants which are given more freedom, especially in their alignment. The typical Githyanki are lawful evil, and so this change of alignment to any alignment gives more freedom for them to be used as NPCs or as inspiration for PCs. The Buccaneer, as an example, is said to have lost the will to serve Valakith, allowing them to forge their own destiny. The options presented in the book understandably are more tailored towards the Spelljammer setting, but they're still versatile enough to be used in other settings. A monster manual for the Astral Sea would be remiss without mentioning the Githyanki, and I think these entries are good additions to what the Gith have already seen in previous books such as Monster Manual and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I like the Githyanki. I would even say I love them. I would give them a 17 out of 20.